choosing the right mate is very key to having a happy life, you know. And from my perspective, getting it right the first time is optimal. You know, I mean, you know, you can choose your career, but you can change your mind. But the one thing that you really don't want to change, if you can help it at all, is your mate. The way this came about is I am happily married. I'm very happily married. I am blessed. I have a fantastic, wonderful wife. And although I am happily married, like I would assume many of you are, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean we know how to tell someone else how to be happily married. I obviously made all the right moves to be happily married, just as you did. But how do you describe that? You know, how do you pass this down to the next generation? How do you share this information with others, like your own children? You know, and so that's the kind of the purpose. I wanted to let you know where I was coming from with this, and that was the purpose of me writing this chapter. Now, having said those things, the way it started was when my daughter was about 11 years old. We were watching television, and she saw a group on TV, and she said, "Oh, isn't he cute?" You know. Now, you know, that sets off an alarm for us guys about our daughters, doesn't it? Okay, it set off an alarm for me. It didn't do that for you, but it certainly did that for me, you know. And so I said something like, "Well, what do you know about cute?" You know, "Well, I don't know, it just kind of looks nice." I said, "Okay, so it's time for me to give her some lessons about relationships. Let me give you the first two rules of relationships. Number one, if you want to know what a boy is about, watch what he does, not what he says, because talk is cheap. Rule number two, if you want to have some idea of how this boy is going to treat you, look at the relationship this boy has with his mother, because no man or boy ever treated any female better than they treat their mother. If he can't be disrespectful to his mother, he probably won't be respectful to you. Agree? All right, now having said that, that got my daughter through high school without getting pregnant, which was wonderful to me, because you know, if you have a daughter, you know that if you're anything like me, every time your daughter goes out with a guy, you're holding your breath. Yeah. Because you don't know what's happening out there. Now, going to college, she wanted to go out of town, like many young children want to do, you know, they didn't want to stay at home, you know, first time away from home. And so she ended up going to Atlanta to college. And that was fine. And she would be communicating with my wife about her relationships. Because one of the things that we guys do not want are details. I don't want detail. You know? You've got details, talk to your mother. Basically, this is not really very difficult to understand. There are basically only two types of relationships. Only two. Now let me tell you where I'm coming from here. I think that God tends to be very straightforward, you know, and God tends to simplify things, you know, but man tends to complicate things. Let me give you for instance. God only had 10 commandments. 10. We have enough laws to fill up 100 of these churches, don't we? Don't you think? Really, you could, with 100 of this size church, you couldn't even put all the books in it that pertain to law. God only had 10 laws. Did we get it? No, we didn't get it. What does God do? Sends his son, doesn't he? His son reduces it to 2. You didn't get the 10, let me break it down to 2. Love God, love your neighbor, and you're good. Right? Is that right? I said, only 2 types of relationship. Just like I tell her, there's only 2 types of people on the planet. There's really only 2. It's not about short, tall, fat, skinny, white, black, red, yellow, brown. Either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And everybody you know everybody you know, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your children, your pastor, is one or the other. Everybody. True? No? Okay. And so, I'm trying to keep it simple. Godly simple. Okay, that's different from just trying to be reductionistic or oversimplifying things. Being godly simple. Two types of relationships. You have the short-term recreational relationship and a long-term marriage relationship. Now, here's the problem. If you confuse a long-term marriage relationship with a short-term recreational relationship, you're probably heading for the divorce court. But if you get it right, you're in good shape. A short-term recreational relationship is disposable. It's based on tangible and superficial qualities, such as sexy, handsome, good dresser, party person, money, cars, and things like that. So now, some of you can probably think back to a time when your choice of a mate to spend company with was based on some of those things. Is it possible that some of the females that were interested in being in your company and going out on a date with you subscribe to some of these things I just described? Do you think a girl wants a guy that's broke? No. You know what that old saying is, there'd be no romance without finance. Right? Do you think that the girlfriends that you had back in the day wanted to go out on a date on the bus? Come on, honey, we'll just go down here to the bus stop and, we'll catch a bus and we'll go to the theater or we'll go to dinner. Most of them would want you to have what?
Wheels.
That's right. They want you to have a car, And if you didn't have one, you would probably try to borrow one from your parents, wouldn't you? Yeah, because that's the way it was back then. That's how we, and did anyone here go out of their way to find an ugly girl? Did you? Or were you looking, like me, for a pretty girl? And so, a short-term recreational relationship is based on these tangible, superficial, materialistic, concrete things. Do you agree? When you went out on your date, did you brush your hair, put on your good shirt, put on your nice clothes, maybe, just maybe, splashed on a little cologne? Short-term recreational relationship. Now, is a short-term recreational relationship a bad thing? Not necessarily. It can be a fantastic thing. Why? Because this is how you learn about girls. This is a men's breakfast here, so I'm talking to you guys. Everything you knew or you learned about females before you found the one that you needed to be with for the rest of your life, you learned from your short-term recreational relationships. So, short-term recreational relationships in and of themselves is not a bad thing. Now, when a short-term recreational relationship goes bad, what do? You let it go. Get another one. Isn't that what you did? More or less? Because I'm going to assume that you had more than one girlfriend in your lifetime.